Thank you for coming here today. My hope is to give you something that can help you achieve some of your wildest dreams. I'm going to start with a story. Some of us live our lives with the assumption that our wildest dreams are simply just that. And we can't imagine that what we would really love to do, that you could have your cake and eat it too in your life. But some people live their lives that way, and I think that the difference between the folks who have figured out how to live an amazing life way beyond their wildest expectations is that they stopped being afraid of getting to that next level. And they've broken through some kinds of barriers, some kinds of assumptions that hold us all back. Once you have a taste of that, you can start to explore and go wider around all of the things that might be holding you back from achieving your greatest potential. And I'm going to tell you the story about how I was able to enter into that mode of thinking, and hopefully I can help you break into that mode of thinking as well. When I was about 1 year into my marriage, I felt a bit like a newlywed still. Super happy. I had a great job in New York City. It was around the time of Barack Obama running for the Democratic nomination in 2006, 2008. My wife and I were volunteers for that campaign, and my wife had recently been invited to go to the Democratic National Convention, but the outcome at that point hadn't been fully determined. My job was going pretty well. My friends' jobs were going well for them. We were thinking about starting a family. Everything was great. Everything was great to a degree. There were some dark linings on the clouds. There were some dark clouds looming. One was that I was a decently paid developer in New York City, and my company had decided that that was something that they didn't want to have to pay for anymore, and they started offshoring jobs, including my job, to Argentina. I was working at Travelocity. They had their main office in Texas. I was at their New York office. They also had a big office in London and a big office in Singapore and several other offices around the world. And it was pretty clear that they were about to shut down the New York office over the next year. So I was going to have to find a new job. But I really loved working at Travelocity at that time. So I picked up a book, a great book from the Pragmatic Bookshelf called My Job Went to India and All I Got was this book. And at that point I had already been sort of in communication with offshore developers in India, in London, in Argentina, Texas. And in this book, the author said, take this obstacle and turn it into an opportunity. The obstacle is the way. Look at what's happening and position yourself to be able to help companies achieve the greater efficiencies that they're seeking with these cost-cutting processes. And at the same time, you might be able to enrich your life with world travel and meeting people from other cultures, which was a passion of mine. And this is why I brought up the concept of achieving your wildest dreams. Nobody thinks that they're that traveling the world is going to be something that they can just decide to do at the same time as getting paid to do a great job that they love. Well, once you what if you flip the script on offshoring and embrace it as a technical leader in a company in the United States, at least at that time, you could be the guy who would go around the world setting up teams, learning new languages, learning new cultures. So I came up with two ideas. And the two ideas I came up with were I wouldn't have come up with if it hadn't been for the environment that I was inspired by. I had friends who loved to salsa dance, to tango. I'd even recently been to a tango class. And these same friends like to do something that you can't do anymore. We used to sneak in to a hotel that was right by Times Square called the Hotel QT. It had a swimming pool right off the lobby. And the swimming pool was beautiful, well-lit pool, had a DJ. It was set up for guests and their friends, but the hotel was pretty open about anybody kind of coming in and attracted a really amazing clientele. When the dancers from The Lion King were done with work, they would head over to the QT and they would, play with each other in the pool. Had a steam room, had a sauna. It was beautiful. So my friends and I, we would take bathing suits and head over to the QT any night of the week that we felt like it, and that was our sort of greatest way to let off our own steam. Once I got married, my wife was really into this pastime as well. Unfortunately, that hotel got sold, and the new owners don't seem to be as generous about the pool. So I was in the steam room of the QT, and the QT symbolized in my life something that was within the realm of too good to be true. It was a free swimming pool right in New York City, right in my backyard. It was my friends and I drinking and laughing and dancing and swimming. It was made possible by just wanting something and figuring out how to get it and taking it, and it all worked out. There's a little bit of finesse involved, a little bit of willingness to break some conventions, but not involving anything illegal or lying to anyone. And everybody had a great time. When I was in this place, I was sort of high on the amazingness of it all, on the having my cake and eating it too feeling of being in that place. So I brainstormed with my friends who like to tango. The idea was I would get my job moved to Argentina sooner rather than later. I would become an agent for the interests of leadership in a successful offshoring project, and some developers were not thinking like that, and it was going slower than it needed to, partly because of that. And if I got in the good enough graces of the leadership, maybe I could convince them to send me to the London office. The London office would be an amazing change of environment with gateway to Europe. It was a really exciting atmosphere with one of our best brands, lastminute.com. And it all worked. I went to Argentina for several weeks. I was able to invite family and friends down while I was there. We enjoyed the culture. I made great connections with the team down there, some of whom I'm still friends with today. And when I got back to New York City, I convinced the management to send me to London, and I was able to move my wife to London, where we had two of our children, and amazing life growing kind of adventures. Now, the point of the story is that what looked like a storm cloud, or what looked like a problem, was actually an incredible opportunity to achieve more goals than I could have ever dreamed of. Now, that pattern has presented itself a few more times in my life to the point where I realized that the mix of world culture, travel, and technology means that some people, technology leaders, have the opportunity to lead even more amazing lives than they are leading today. And the process that I'm going to lay out is how to build an international offshore tech team that delivers amazing value for a large business or startup, and how to live a great life within that decision. Now, the idea of a remote tech team is kind of controversial. And first, I want to make sure that I define what I'm talking about and what I'm not talking about. This book is not about how to make remote work possible. Remote work is when people are in different offices. Like when Travelocity had a New York office and a Houston office, the folks in New York were remote to the Houston workers, and we still collaborated. You can have remote workers that are onshore, that are offshore, freelancers, full-timers. That challenge is part of having a remote team, but it's not the same, and I'll explain that further. We're also not talking about offshore outsourcing. Outsourcing is when someone else hires developers and they put together a team, and you need something built. You call up the outsourcer, and the outsourcer builds it for you. You give them what you want, and they give you back the thing. Now, some outsourcers will do a project for a fixed price. Some will do it in a more collaborative fashion, maybe integrating somewhat with your team. But in the end, the folks who are working on that project aren't working for you. They're working for the outsourcer. That's their identity. And when you're done, they will maybe move on to another project, not for you. I'm talking about a different kind of model. I'm talking about building a team that wears the mantle of your company, your project, your business, that is passionate about it. The mission of the company is one of their motivators in their life. The team is not necessarily even working remotely with respect to the other folks that they're collaborating with, that they actually are physically located together working on your project, but just not working on your project where you live or in the country where the headquarters of your company is. That is a remote team, an offshore team. Now, there's always a cost for a team to be divided. You don't divide your forces unless you have to. When a great team is located all in the same location, they can achieve amazing things together. Collaboration is high, the contextual communication is high, the understanding of the product can filter from the top to the bottom of the company, the values that are held by the leadership can spread through the company instantly because everyone's there, everyone knows each other, everyone's fighting together, everyone's working 24/7, battling together, and that kind of environment is the environment in which most really great startups start. There's one problem, though, which is that most startups start and fail because they run out of money before they can achieve product market fit. Now, maybe most startups shouldn't have started. The ones that failed should fail. Those people are free now to work on something that's more worthwhile, that will be a more valuable product. And it's great that companies fail when they run out of money and they stop doing what they're doing because they shouldn't be doing it. But there's a lot of cases where there's products that should exist, but in order to prove their viability, you need longer, you need more time. And if you could lengthen the runway of a company significantly without putting in a lot more money, you can increase the chance that they can find product market fit for whatever they're building. Now, offshoring a team means that your product team could potentially be further away from the market that you're trying to fit to. It could be that your market knowledge is located in New York City and your developers are located in Egypt. Those Egyptian developers are going to take a lot longer to stumble on what is going to delight the New York City resident on whatever you're working on. There's ways around that issue. First, not all products are local products. Second, they're a great developer in Egypt or in India or in Colombia isn't necessarily that culturally different from your target market if your product is targeting someone who's part of the global cosmopolitan elite. You can iterate more quickly with more dev resources in a way that helps you find product market fit if you have more resources to work with. You can iterate faster even if the person working on the product isn't the one who's doing your customer discovery work. When you have an offshore team, an onshore developer in the United States, a good one, can cost between $100,000 and $150,000 a year. That same quality of developer offshore could be between $20,000 and $40,000 a year. Now, if you're hiring 3 developers for, say, 120 each, 360,000 versus 30 each, 90,000, you're saving 250,000 a year, $250,000 a year, just making that choice. That $250,000 you can spend on other things, or you can extend your runway, or you can explore a much wider feature set, a product domain. Another thing that you can do as a founder is move to a place that's cheaper. This sort of Tim Ferriss 5-hour workweek trick. Take your job and move it to somewhere else where you can afford to live and on a lot less money. So when I was at Travelocity, I became more and more comfortable with offshoring because I had to. We had a budget for analysts that was only able to hire people who had very basic skills. We were located in London, where there is a fairly successful financial district that would be able to outbid a travel company every single time. Within that budget, I looked around and I found that in Poland, where we had a customer service office, there was also a lot of really well-educated people who could do what I needed them to do, but for a lot cheaper, for a third of the price. And I convinced the company to move me and my family to Poland for 6 months while I built out a team there. It was an extremely successful project. That team became superstars within the company. Some of them ended up moving to London. All of them have had great careers since then. And I got some more confidence in how to do this. I also helped start a startup on the side for a friend, hiring Ukrainian developers to help build an online travel company, and I was super happy about that. But not going to the Ukraine and not meeting those developers in person, there was a little more friction, and it was definitely noticeably different. When I worked with our India team, I noticed that there was a huge change in productivity after I went to India to be with the team.